Thanks, Clerk. The Public Meetings Act compliance
The
statement.
notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied with respect to this meeting of the Township Council. The meeting time and date were included in the public meeting notice along with the public internet link and telephone call-in information. Said notice of the meeting agenda was posted in the municipal building and sent to the official newspapers of the Township, the Verona Zero Times and Star Ledger, at least 48 hours preceding the start time of this meeting. The agenda and handouts can be viewed online at www.veronamj.org/council meetings. Public comment period will be held in the order it's listed on the meeting agenda, and instructions on how to comment will be provided at the appropriate space.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland? Here. Councilwoman McGrath? Here. Councilman Roman?
Here.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy?
Present.
Mayor Tamburro?
Present.
Mayor also present tonight is Township Manager Joe DiArco, Deputy Township Manager Kevin O'Sullivan, Township Attorney Brian Malloy, and myself, National Clerk Jennifer King.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Everybody, please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the United States and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. The mayor's report this evening, just a couple updates. Township administration and Deputy Mayor and I met with the appropriations team at Senator Booker's office to follow up on our original outreach to them. They were very positive and certainly I think we're interested in the project and we look forward to the support as we move forward. They did extend the deadline for applications because of they're waiting for some guidance from the Congress. So they will keep that filled. So that was a very positive meeting and thank everybody for staying on it. I had the pleasure of attending the opening of Palmetto Venues, which is a new event space in Verona near the intersection on Bloomfield Avenue, near the intersection with Lakes Avenue. It has two great spaces. The owners were all very, very nice and energetic and really looking to engage in relationships with the community. So I wish them the best. I thank the Deputy Mayor and Councilman Roman for joining me to welcome them to town, and please consider adding to them to your list of vendors that you use in our municipality. We just had this evening the groundbreaking for our inclusive playground in the community center recreation complex. And I thank everybody for attending, especially Assemblyman Al Barlis and our representatives from Essex County as well. The Environmental Commission met last week. I look forward to presenting the winners of the recycling poster contest with their awards at the next meeting. The VEC will be having a cleanup at Grove Park on 20th of April from 9 to 11 in the morning. You can see the website for more information. And they'll also be having a tree giveaway per day, which is very, very exciting as well. So you can check out the VEC website for that information. I was unfortunately not able to attend the opening for Segura de mi Tierra in town. I was the joy of traveling with the Verona High School band and choir programs to Virginia, which was a phenomenal trip with a great group of kids. But I have gone to the restaurant multiple times and I have. So please consider giving them your support as well. Another one of our great Bloomfield Avenue businesses. And that concludes my report. I will now call up Mr. Coltrane, our community liaison.
Good evening, Mayor. Just want to say thank you very much for inviting me to the groundbreaking and county executive self. I have a couple of things to remind you for tomorrow morning. It's our last Tuesday of the month. We have our mayor's call. Both you and the town manager were notified. A couple of other things. We have this Thursday at Branchford Park, the Cherry Blossom Center, we are doing our box giveaway for the needy. We're giving away 1,000 boxes. It runs from 9 a.m., but I would suggest if you know anyone who's in need of food for the holiday weekend, please let them get there a little bit earlier, and hopefully everyone has a good holiday this coming week. The other thing is we're moving into spring, even though the weather doesn't say spring. I have my winter coat on, so, but we are moving in the first week of April. We have on April 6th at 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Cherry Blossom Challenge bike race. And it's around the Oval in Branchford Park, if you're familiar with that. And on Sunday, April 7th, from at 10 a.m., we have our 10K run. I will not be participating, but I will be in attendance. On Saturday, the 13th, we'll have a mile fun walk for children and adults who would like to participate. And the same day, Saturday, April 13th, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., we have Family Fun Day. That is at the presidential area, which is between Park Avenue and the Cathedral. It's a beautiful area. The cherry blossoms are coming out, even though the weather doesn't say spring. And we did hand this out, and you should have gotten it in the mail. If not, welcome to give my office a call, and it's the purchasing department. Any questions or comments?
Thank you, School Train. Questions from the council?
Thank you. Have a very nice holiday weekend.
Okay, we have two proclamations on the agenda tonight. The first is for Child Abuse Prevention Month. And I will read the proclamation and then ask the Women's Club to come forward to discuss the program this month. Whereas we all have a responsibility as individuals, neighbors, community members, and citizens of Township of Verona to help create healthy, nurturing, and safe experiences for children. Whereas healthy and safe childhoods help produce confident and successful adults. And whereas child abuse and neglect often occur when people find themselves in stressful situations without community resources and don't know how to cope. And whereas incidences of child abuse and neglect can be reduced by making sure all families have the support they need and deserve to raise their children in a healthy environment. Whereas it is recognized that no person can do everything, but that everyone can do something, and together we can create change for the better. And whereas effective prevention programs succeed because of partnerships among nonprofit organizations, government agencies, volunteer organizations, schools, service clubs, houses of worship, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. Whereas display a pinwheel or planting a pinwheel garden in April will serve as a positive reminder that all children deserve great childhoods, happy, healthy, and safe. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Dr. Christopher Tamboro, Mayor of the Township of Verona, hereby proclaim April 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention Month and urge all residents to engage in activities that strengthen families and communities, provide the optimal environment for children to learn, grow, and thrive, so that all children have the benefit of happy, healthy, and safe childhoods. With whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the official seal of the Township of Verona, New Jersey, to be affixed on this 25th day of March in the year 2024. Women's Club would like to come forward and discuss the pinwheel program. Give us Ms. Lawrence, thank you.
I don't want to come with me.
You can have a partner.
That's all right. Well, hopefully you can hear me because this is.
But
I'm gonna knock it over if I try and do this.
what's our Sullivan?
All right, I need to passport over here. Okay. I only know how to print. There we go. Just a little bit. I'm from the Women's Club of Verona. My name is Mickey Lawrence, and we've been putting pinwheels out probably since about 2008 when the program started. Prevent Child Abuse America introduced this idea to plant pinwheels, blue ones, to be a symbol for child abuse prevention. And it's really meant to, I guess, symbolize a pinwheel, which indicates a very happy childhood. So that's why they do the pinwheels. And every April we come out to plant those pinwheels. Many of us in the Women's Club bring our grandchildren to help put them in. So it's a lot of fun for them and for us. We put ours at the community center, and I think the juniors are here. They usually plant theirs by the police station. One last thing I have is that on Friday, April 5th, they ask people to wear blue as support of child abuse prevention. So that's all I have to say, unless there's
Any
questions.
questions for Deputy Mayor? Comment?
Just a thank you to all the women of the Women's Club for all you've done in the past and all you just continue to do day after day for the town.
We try.
And it spreads outside the town also. Thank you.
Thank you.
I echo that sentiment, and it's always good to see you all here. We appreciate you keeping these programs going, and they're so important as an educator. This one is very near and dear to my heart. So,
Thank you.
for the rest of the club like to come up, we'll do a photograph.
Yeah. That's there behind the teacher.
And over. Right. Oh, Deputy Mayor, it's better.
Right to the back.
Wait. There we go. Sorry. I'm trying not to get the. Councilman Roman, can you go right to Cynthia's other side, Councilman? That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
Our next proclamation this evening is to honor National Vietnam War Veterans Day. Do that now. Whereas America's involvement in Vietnam began in June 1954 with the military advisors, escalated into 11 years of military combat, involving more than 3 million servicemen and servicewomen, and officially ended on May 15, 1975, with the Joint Special Operations Squadron rescuing the crew of the USS Merchant ship Iages on the island of Koh Tang near Cambodia. Whereas more than 212,000 of New Jersey's bravest sons and daughters wore the uniforms of our nation's armed forces during this most turbulent time in U.S. history, and during the war's unpopularity, and risking their lives fighting democracy. Reflect on the life-changing combat wounds of so many of our Verona residents and the suffering and sacrifice felt families of those missing in action. Whereas, since the unveiling, Vietnam War memorials across the country and here in our state of Homedale have helped heal a nation deeply divided by paying eternal tribute to the 58,286 American servicemen and women who made the ultimate sacrifice in Vietnam. Of the names listed on the Vietnam Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C., 1,487 in the state of New Jersey. Whereas Vietnam veterans awarded the Medal of Honor, the highest distinction that can be bestowed by the President of the United States in the name of the U.S. Congress, with conspicuous gallantry and intrepid actions as they risked their lives and went above and beyond duty. And whereas on Vietnam Veterans Day, we remember and appreciate with grateful hearts the contributions of the Vietnam veterans now living in New Jersey, as well as the extraordinary bravery. And whereas Verona residents First Lieutenant Gerald Gogan, Anthony Hine, and Lance Corporal Robert Allen McCluskey were killed in action, and today are listed on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C. And whereas Vietnam Veterans Day affords us the opportunity to recall, with pride and gratitude, the selfless military service, patriotism, battle courage, and personal sacrifice of those servicemen and women who answered the country's call to duty to fight for another nation's peace and democracy. And therefore, I, Dr. Christopher Tamboro, Mayor of the Township of Verona, do hereby acknowledge March 29th, 2024, as National Vietnam Veterans Day, and invite all citizens, both in public ceremonies and private thoughts and prayers, gratefully acknowledge our Vietnam veterans. Witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and cause the official seal of the Township of Verona, New Jersey, to be affixed on this 25th day of March in the year 2024. I just want to take a minute to thank all of the the Verona Vietnam veterans, many of whom we see at our ceremonies, and to especially recognize our township manager, Mr. Diarco, who fought in country in Vietnam, as well as retired police chief Doug Huber, who did the same. And I'd also like to take a minute of personal privilege to recognize my father, who was in the Army during that era as well. It was one of the most significant moments of my life visiting the Vietnam wall within Washington, D.C. as a teenager. And I encourage everybody to do the same. If you have not gone to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Homedale, it is truly a wonderful place, and the museum is extraordinary. So I hope they look at it. It's been my practice as mayor to give proclamations when there's somebody to. So this evening, it's going to be my honor to present the Arco. Joe, I know you will not allow us to take a picture, but I will walk this proclamation to you. Thank you. And that concludes my report, Mr. Diarco.
Very emotional for me. I would like to dance to Kevin right now. He's happening.
Mr. Sullivan.
I circulated a copy of my report to the mayor and council. I'll go through some of the highlights of the report, and I'll answer any questions. We've completed the water and sewer rate study. New rates will be going into effect April 1st. We will be kicking off a formal pool rate study for the 2025 pool season. We're going to be holding a kickoff meeting later this week with a consultant and a team to review the expectations for that rate study. We have a full presentation on the wastewater treatment plant. I won't take up any more time discussing that now. We'll be discussing that in detail with Boswell. Regarding the water well projects, Lynn Drive well is expected to be breaking ground, and the contractor should be mobilizing in early April. And Fairview Avenue well will be going out to bid, hopefully in May or June, with an award of contract in July. Like stormwater, we have a kickoff meeting with the Township Engineer, Administration and Planning Board for establishing a stormwater management plan. That kickoff meeting is later this week. We also have a meeting scheduled on April 12th with Verona, Cedar Grove, Little Falls, Woodland Park, and the Legislative District 40 team. We also will be scheduling, or we have scheduled our joint flood control advisory board meeting. It will be held at Cedar Grove Town Hall on Monday, April 15th. And we will be scheduling future meetings after that meeting as well. Regarding a number of energy initiative projects, we held a kickoff meeting regarding our local government energy audit earlier today. There will be about a month and a half worth of field work, a month and a half worth of reports, and finalizing a presentation. Eventually that final study will be brought to the mayor and council for presentation at a public meeting. We will also be meeting with a solar consultant later this week to continue those discussions on analysis of potential solar projects in the township. Continuing on, we did discuss the community center playground. We have a number of road projects that are continuing to advance. We have Derwent Avenue. We've finished all of the preparatory work for paving. That paving will be scheduled in April. And we also have some shade tree plantings, which we're coordinating with the neighborhood over the past few weeks, and we'll be scheduling that in April as well. Boston Whitney and Windermere Road reconstruction project kicked off today. We held a community meeting last week. Construction started today, and the contractor will be continuing on that project through completion. And Douglas Place repaving and reconstruction is also currently out to bid. We'll be receiving bids April 2nd. Additionally, there are a number of grant applications we continue to work with our grant consultant on. And that is the abridged version of my report. If there's any questions from the council.
Appreciate it, Mr. Sullivan. Any questions, Mr. Sullivan? Councilwoman?
Thank you. A couple things. So how are in terms of the implementation of the new rates, what's the communications plan to residents? Is there going to be like a notice or so that residents, when they get their second quarter bills, they're not surprised?
So there's been some public notification that's been going out both on the website and social media. There are also notices. There's been a number of notices regarding rate study and the updated rates. We will be working with our public information officer to continue pushing out messaging, and we can certainly look to push out additional messaging related rates.
Or at least have like an FAQ prepared in case residents call when they get their bill, like, why is this higher? So that there's a consistent message that all residents are given, and maybe then pointing to information on the website that contains the study. And because I imagine it's going to generate quite a large number of questions.
Sure. There's been coordination with all the department heads and all the employees that will be receiving a lot of those phone calls. The messaging that's been going out through our public information officer and with the postings on the website and through social media, we've been providing that information internally as well. So they have the same information. So it's the same messaging across the board through.
Okay, that's excellent. In terms of the road reconstruction projects, I'm just going back to the ones that we completed, like Anne and Cypress. You know, we planted a lot of trees not at the best time, and that may have been prior to your tenure. So I just want to make sure that the administration goes back, and now that spring is springing and things, you know, it's going to become very apparent which one of those trees made it and which ones didn't, and what were the guarantees and what needs to be replaced. So I just want to make sure that's on someone's radar, that we kind of make sure those past road reconstruction shade trees. We
do have them. We have a specific calendar for performance bonds and maintenance bonds. Okay. So we are anticipating going out there to perform an inspection this spring to see if there's any tree replacements necessary.
Okay, that's excellent. All right, great. Thank you.
Any questions? Councilman?
I'll just give a general thank you, Mr. Sullivan. We have a lot of very, very important work on your plate as we're going through this list here. I really appreciate hearing all these projects going on, because they're very consequential to the township, and appreciate your command of all of this workload and your diligence in reporting to us. So thank you very much for the work you're doing.
This report is getting longer and longer.
Yes.
Yeah. Councilman?
Thank you. With regard to the pool study, so I appreciate that you would be looking into doing a rate study. Is there a strategic plan aspect of it? Because the rate implementation is only as good as like a long-term plan. So for example, the rate study for our water and wastewater treatment was coupled with the work report that will be presented with later, as well as the asset management plan. What we don't have is necessarily a strategic plan for the pool going forward. So we have anything like that in the works that the rate study team would be working with?
We will be working, the consultant that's working with us on the rate study has expertise in a breadth of pool related topics and revenue concerns and questions, debt structure. There's a number of those discussions that we will coordinate with the consultant as far as making sure that the rates are structured in a manner that also couples and complements a strategic plan that can be implemented by staff.
Yeah, I would just say for my point, just as a comment, that I think that continuing a status quo approach and then just having a rate structure that's going to say that membership fees are just going to go up and up without like something more robust and strategic about looking at other revenue streams, but also looking at the quality of the services that are provided. I mean, the two go hand in glove. So, that's why you couple a rate study with like an asset management plan, because you have to understand how you're maintaining that quality of service at that cost. Otherwise, it's just going to be that the costs are going to go up. So it sounds like you do have that in the works with the consultant as well as your staff. So I just want to make sure that when we do get that final report, it's going to cover all of that. Thank you. With regard to the wastewater treatment plant, I just want to acknowledge the ongoing dialogue that you've been having with residents on Derwent. I do understand that these are very troubling concerns that they've been dealing with regard to wastewater backflow. And I do appreciate how responsive you've been. I do want to also encourage, any additional proactive dialogue with them. I do appreciate you prioritizing and taking down a tree as appropriate and scoping that. And so if we do need to be prioritizing those problematic areas, I do very much appreciate that. And I think it's so important to be responsive. Certainly there have been other parts of town that have also experienced, troubling backflow because of some of our infrastructure concerns, and communication is a major mitigating factor. So thank you for that. With regard to your license operator and the permit expiring at the end of 2024, I'll probably reserve any comments or questions I have about that when we discuss the wastewater treatment plant. I did want to ask on your stormwater update with regard to the Peckman meeting on April 12th, if possible, if the council could get a timely report out on the subject of that discussion.
Sure.
And how it went, especially because I would be attending the April 15th meeting of the flood advisory. So if I can get as timely information as possible, but I think it's so important to be transparent with my colleagues. I think really any communication should go to the full council. That would be appreciated. And also with regard to the roadwork projects, I really just want to also say thank you for being so responsive to residents with regard to their shade tree concerns. I know that there were some residents that were worried that too many trees were coming down, and that the township has been responsive to that. And so fewer trees are coming down. If that could also be coordinated, like with the Shade Tree Commission, to make sure that those trees that are planted are viable, I think that would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure. No, I want to give a lot of credit to Chuck. He's been very helpful in both the Derwent inspections, the corrective measures that were necessary, and coordinating with all the neighborhoods on the tree removal. So I want to make sure I pass that along directly to Chuck and all of his guys as well. But
thank you, Doug, for always being responsive to us.
Thank you. Yes. So I have a quick question. It's more probably for the clerk. Being that you brought up the advisory, Joint Flood Control Advisory Board, do we have a full committee there? I know we just appointed someone at the last meeting.
We do. That was, the ordinance calls for one resident.
Okay, so it's full. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Please, I know you're aware of the tree that came down in the storms this weekend. And I had Kevin notify Carol Thomas and the shade tree to look at all the trees on that street so that we can make sure none of them are adversely affected. So residents can be assured that we're checking the entire street while it's fresh in their minds that they may be a concern. So we put that in place this morning. I did have a meeting with Steve Neely relative to the 501c3 Friends of Verona Park field. He has confirmed when we begin the campaign for Everett, as soon as the final meetings get passed by the mayor and council. When we move on that project, donations will be funding through that 501c3 project at Everett Field. Those plans should be the final draft stages for you, sure. Emergency services building, we're still meeting with community groups. We're targeting a major community meeting in June. And we'll also have asked the township attorney to work on, we research some policies from other communities across this state and the country relative to sponsorship and naming various rooms as part of your fundraising efforts. And I'll be discussing in closed session a recommendation for a professional firm to handle that aspect of your project. the I'm looking down to see if anything is really relevant that is important for tonight before we get into the other project. And then your parking signs, final designs and recommendations have been split, very honestly. However, it appears that the sign number 1 is the recommended choice with P rather than logo instead of the hand, which may be confusing, the arrow. So I think that seemed to be the general consensus in the selection of the Chamber of Commerce, which I gave major preference to. We'll be going with a similar sign for your replacement of the sign at the pool. That's well beyond its age, and it'll be in the same imprint. It'll be the same town color, and those designs will pass to you already. So too, and we'll get that project going. And as soon as we get the policy on sponsorships, most of those are all being sponsored. The chamber, I met with them, and they were very enthusiastic to help about getting businesses to sponsor the individual parking signs. We hope to get that project out of here very shortly. And unless there's any other specific items that you'd like to address, I'd be glad to answer those questions, or we move on to the engineer.
Any items, Mr. Jocko? Councilman Rowe?
Just wondering, it's the fact that there is no update is kind of an update on it. Is traffic light at Pompton and Claremont? I don't know. It felt like construction started on that for a little while and then sort of stopped. I don't know if there's any further insight that we have.
No, I checked on that. There's not any further discussions on that. The developer keeps reaching out for support, which you can't count on the township and sit there. We're not sure about our delays. So this
One day there will be a street light up.
I know with that. They have approvals from the DOT. They have all their approvals.
I know there's a backlog in the traffic signal, the lights, officers themselves, that's all over supply chain.
That's a good thing. That's one thing that is not sitting there is a traffic light.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Diarco. And we are moving on to the wastewater treatment. So I'll do the seatbelts, everybody.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Giselle Diaz from Basel Engineering. So the wastewater treatment plant was constructed in 1928. 2 renovations were done in 1967 and 88. The plant is owned and operated by the township and is rated for an average daily flow of 3 million gallons per day and discharges into the Peckman River. It should be noted that during wet weather events, we peak over 4 times that amount. During the assessment, we did site visits at the plant and we went through all the assets and looked at the conditions, spoke with the operator at the time and the new operator and personnel just to discuss the issues they've been having. So these are in the report, it says every asset, but these are just all the, the major assets that are at the plant. So the personnel and staff have identified some immediate needs. I put some in the report. We did have initial estimate, but with the new operator, he has identified some other immediate need projects. The funding for this comes from the operating budget, but also, and then some resolutions that I guess they had appropriated money to get some of the repairs already done. When we went through all the assets, the priority 1 projects that we thought were the most important and are critical to the plant operating and meeting regulatory requirements are the primary clarifier pumping station, which is currently under design by a different consultant, and it is being funded through the NJIB. The micro screens, which are an outdated design, we're looking to replace them with an updated. It's become very hard for the staff to repair it, to get parts for it. So it's become very maintenance, troublesome. So for the staff, and then the ultraviolet, the UV disinfection system has given them problems, probably, close to when it's been installed. They've had to do numerous fixes, but currently a lot of the bulbs are, they're constantly out, they're constantly replacing them. So it's another maintenance issue for the staff. So we did a cost estimate for the 3 projects, and it's 7.18 million for the construction costs. It's also, we should note that we did work with the user rate with New Gen, and this all has been put in the first 1 to 3 years, with the primary clarifier pump station being the first on the list because it's currently at the last stages of design. Some other future projects that we identified for the next, we would say year 3 to 10, are different projects just to keep the placing pumps and doing some structural analysis and structural improvements to the plant. We have also recommended an I&I study due to the peaking factor. The I&I study will include smoke testing throughout the township. And also there are areas that the DPW has identified that they have sewer backups, and it issues there. So we would be doing some video inspection. So the way we worked it is we put, I think, the smoke testing in the first year of the rate study. And then we identified, we put money towards every year for the next 10 years to do the rest of the video inspection and to do the remedies to what we find in the I&I study. Another thing that we looked at were different alternatives for the operation and management of the treatment plant. We looked at 3 alternatives. One being hiring a full-time operator and staff for the wastewater treatment plant. Currently, we have a part-time operator, and we're utilizing the current staff. The second alternative was to retain the services of an O&M provider, and I'll go to that a little bit on the next slide. And alternative 3 was the possible conversion of the wastewater treatment plant to a pumping station to convey flow to Passaic Valley Sewerage Commission. And the mayor, we had a couple of meetings with Passaic Valley, and just to look at the feasibility. We did a high level cost estimate, which is in the report, about $60 million. But there's definitely more studies that need to be done because we need to see if there's conveyance capacity, what route would be the best if we were to go that route. And then also when you change treatment plans, you have to get an amendment to the wastewater management plan. There's DEP permitting. We have to see how the Peckman River would be affected because you're not discharging to it. Now, if we were to go that route. So those are different things that would have to be assessed if we were to go with alternative 3. And that is at a minimum 8 to 10 years down the line. It's a long time. And for all 3 of these other alternatives, all the capital improvement projects would have to be done in the time frame just to keep the plant up and running. So it's 60 million plus the 20 million that we spoke about. So alternative 2, the O&M provider, it's the alternative that it has the advantage that it could be implemented in a short period of time, where there is different levels of service for an O&M provider. There's just getting staff and a full-time operator all the way to the level that they provide vehicles, chemicals, staffing. They pretty much come in and run the station to supplement the staff. We met with a couple of providers just to get a different idea of what the services they can provide. And that's something that if we decide to go that route, alternative 2, which is our recommendation, we would pretty much list the services and get put on an RFQ to get a provider. So the assumption of the responsibility of the wastewater treatment plant would be by the O&M provider. They would be responsible for all testing, reporting, records management. They work with the township staff and they train them. And the advantage is that they work in other treatment plants. So they're not just at one place. They get ideas. They can come back and implement it with the staff, and they also can help with hiring. And because right now we only have 6 staff members, and we're supplementing with the DPW right now. So they would help in the hiring of personnel to fully man the plant. They have specialized experience, and they can meet, specific operating conditions as they come new regulations. And they would be in charge, they would be responsible for meeting all new regulatory regulation, all regulatory changes that are coming, with nitrate being one of them a little bit in the report. So all the alternatives, like I mentioned before, will require the capital improvement projects to ensure the regulatory compliance. The benefits of the I&I right now, every time it rains, we're way over our peak. It puts a burden on the plant, but we need to take care of it at the source, not just try to increase, pumps at the plant. So we are looking to, with the smoke testing, to look at any illicit connections and with stormwater, any sump pumps, and that'll all be identified with the study. All, like I mentioned before, the project cost and coordination with the user rate study. We had multiple meetings with them. We planned out the next 10 years of capital improvement projects that we identified, and some that we didn't identify, like I&I remediation. So the cost for alternative 2 versus the other alternatives, we spoke a little bit about alternative 3 being a long-term solution, and that 60 million that we're talking about is probably in today's cost, and 10 years from now, it'll probably be a way different cost. There will be an annual cost for alternative 2. We can do the contract on a yearly basis, on a 5-year basis. However, we decide to go on it, and we can lock in a cost for a couple of years. And so it's more expensive than alternative 1, but the benefit is the plant will run more efficient, and they would help us with all regulatory compliance. So there's less liability for the township.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz. So the public's aware, this is a summary of the detailed recommendations the council is in possession of as well. Do you have any questions from here?
One of a general comment, if I may.
Verona?
Yes, great. I'm familiar with the 3 primary immediate need projects that you flagged between the clarifier pumping station, the microscreens, and the AV system. One of the challenges that I feel like we run into with the plans a lot is a lot of things that were designed to have systems redundancy originally seem to have lost it over the years. And we end up with, when failures happen, they quickly turn into emergencies because we don't have, over the degradation of the plants, we've lost a lot of that. And I'm curious, did you observe that? Is there, do your plans think about that? Because that's one of the things, if we are to be long-term in the business of operating this plant, through rehabilitation and putting things back into good working order, I'd like to try and get us out of that mode.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that an O&M provider could do. They would be proactive. So everything's not an emergency. You get a better price when you do it through when we bid projects. So it would be long-term planning. So when you bring an O&M provider there, I'm sure that they're going to have their recommendations on what to do with the plant to make it run more efficiently. And I know that the operator that's on staff right now has been fixing some of the pumps, trying to get everything online just to get it to work status quo, because that is an issue that we've had pumps down.
Councilman Hall?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank you and Boswell Engineering as a whole for taking the time to prepare this robust report for us. I think it is very helpful to kind of understand the state of our wastewater treatment plant. We've heard various resident objections about their experience after major flash flooding events and major storms. We've heard about the infiltration and really inundation of the plant. We've seen some very shocking pictures of the plant completely underwater. So it's been troubling, and it's really helpful to have all of the materials all in one place. I do also want to thank you for working with New Gen Strategies to incorporate a lot of your recommendations. It would have been perfect, so like just shy of perfect, to get this presentation this evening. It would have been preferred to have gotten it in advance of the rate study analysis, but I do appreciate that you did work collaboratively with them so that a lot of your recommendations are incorporated into that rate study analysis. And this council has approved the rate study recommendations. So the funding mechanisms will be there to move forward with your priority projects and the recommended or the priority one and the immediate need projects. So I do really appreciate that. With regard to the I&I study and the smoke testing, anecdotally, you know, the experience of residents getting smoke into their house has been very disturbing, especially in other municipalities. I anticipate that we would have a similar thing here. So I did appreciate that there was discussion about collaborating with municipality. I do think that it's for the township administration to really make sure that that is adequately communicated and that we have the staff around, because, you know, if there are inappropriate connections, then it's very possible that the smoke does go into somebody's house and then people could be really disturbed. So it'd just be really important to understand if we have children at home or elderly persons, or really just making sure that communication is there. And it's possible that people didn't even know about these connections, right? Because, you know, if it's an old house, you may not even be aware of that. I agree with alternative 2, and I really appreciate, you know, your analysis of the different alternatives. I do think bringing in like an O&M operator that, you know, has kind of like the bench strength to support our municipality and understands our key concerns is going to be superior to, and perhaps some of the consultants that we've had previously supporting us. Excuse me. I do also want to thank Kevin for responding to some of my concerns earlier today. So I'll reserve some of the questions that I had asked him. And I guess my last comment is I really appreciate you starting your report with the kind of age of our treatment plant, right? Like this is a 1928 vintage wastewater treatment plant that's only had 2 major renovations in approximately 100 years. So think about that, like in terms of your own house. Like, does anybody want their 1988 kitchen anymore? This is like wastewater treatment technology that is 1988 vintage. There's a reason why these things are wearing out, why you can't get these parts anymore, why we don't have the redundancy. And it's incumbent upon us to be investing in this infrastructure for our residents and for the environment as a whole. We're not contributing to a clean environment if we are not properly treating our wastewater. So I just really want to thank you so much for this presentation and the thoroughness of it. I've really appreciated working with you all, and I'm grateful for the collaboration and the administration's leadership on this. So thank you.
Yes, again, thank you for this report. It was a good read because we've been looking for this for quite a while. I just want to put clarity to the numbers that you gave us. Priority 1 projects, you said 7 million, and then all the others together was 22. Just for the public, that includes priority 1 projects. So it's not 22 plus.
It was 22 over the 10 years.
Yep.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that the public knows.
And that's an estimate, you know, just, you know, the last few years, you know, prices have changed because of supply chain. So that's an estimate in today's dollars.
Do we have any idea, this may be for the administration, not for you, when we plan on doing the smoke testing? For number one, I've never seen it before, and I've asked a million questions about it, so I want to be present somewhere in Verona for this. And I do agree with Councilwoman Holland. We definitely have to get this out there because when it's explained, people will be panicked.
Even if it's not explained.
Yeah.
And normally the way it works, we do have like a kickoff meeting. So we like to invite the fire department and, you know, the contractor that's going to perform the work. And then we do door-to-door notices so that they know what to expect. And then, you know, it's dependent on the township whether they want to have the fire department on staff, but they will get phone calls. So we want them to know what streets we're doing, so we try to get everybody on board to make it as, you know, seamless as possible.
Mayor, if I may, this will sort of kick in. We'll have the entire staffs and public information to map out a plan to maximize the blitz on each section as we can. So information is out there and our emergency services will be on board That could be a lot of phone calls.
Yes.
We're gonna do a very intensive information campaign, and the second piece will go better than we'll learn from the first one all.
I think there's actually an opportunity there. I'll talk to you offline without turning that into a drill for emergency management as well, and public information
Yeah.
campaigns on the day off, which could be very helpful for that side, which we don't get a lot.
And one last question.
Yes.
It was on page 21, you talked about repurposing the dry beds and the greenhouses in your facility. Do we know what we're repurposing them for? Or what?
They've been talking about it, but I don't think,
No, nothing.
nothing's set yet. We do have to get DP approval before we do it, just because it is in the process. But it's my understanding that that's not used. That's not something that's commonly used anymore, a process. So we shouldn't have an issue with that. And we spoke to the operator last week about it. So once we have a plan, it's a pretty big area. So
Plan. Don't worry about it.
she has a plan.
Thank you, Councilwoman McGrath.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this really comprehensive report. And, you know, this is really a strategic plan for this asset that's so important. And so this was really helpful. As an aside, just my first question, the plant does flood. I mean, we have a whole issue with water getting into the sewer system clearly and overwhelming the plant's capacity. But we also, in extreme events, actually have the Peckman flooding the plant. That's not in this. How to protect the physical plant is not in here at all. Do you have a point of view?
So I did put in, you know, it is in the, that's why I put that environmental map, just to show you that it was in the flood, you know, there's part of it that's in the flood hazard. One of the things that we put in there was a structural analysis, and that's something that we'll look into as part of that.
Can you, thank you for that. Can you talk a little bit about the fact that for the primary clarifier pumping station, we actually approved money for that project back in 2021. So why has it taken so long? It sounds like we're on the cusp that the design's finally being approved. Is there a good answer on why it's taken 3 years, or are we, because I guess what my concern is, given that took 3 years, these other priority projects, can we do this faster in your estimation?
Yes, I think we definitely do it faster. You can, Joe, you can take that over.
The routines in place.
Okay.
To move all your projects. I think you've seen that on almost all the projects. And we cleared some of the delay that was previously on the deck. We got it right. So you'll see most of your projects moving in a pace that they should be.
Okay, thank you for that. Can you talk a bit about what's not in your summary presentation, but is in your report about the nitrate levels and what's happening?
Sure. So there was a decision that we would get a limit of 10. So Kevin and I met with a consultant that does dynamic modeling. Right now, the limit is set using like worst case scenario, lowest flow in the river. So dynamic modeling that they're going to perform will take 10 years of data, and they'll model it to see where the limit should be. Now, this consultant has worked with DEP and other municipalities and has success. So I think they're going to give us, before they do the whole study, they will give us an update. They do, and then they will also give us, even if they can't change it to, you know, be something that's 20 or like to change it, they will let us know if they can lower to increase it, I guess, to a point that we may be able to use blending or, you know, alternative treatment is not as expensive. So I think they're going to do a short study, let us know if it's feasible to even continue with the dynamic modeling. And then from there, they will be working with DP the whole entire time, and then we will be involved as well.
Right. eliminates the need.
So this is part of kind of an appeal, we'll say, to any decisions. And I hope if we do move to the OEM provider, this governing body can get more timely updates on notices and violations that we may be facing, because there was a lot of reference in this report, and I'm not sure, and I keep up with a lot of my emails, that we have always been aware of all the things happening that's referenced in this report.
I think it's more, it's not everything was a violation. So it's just that there's deficiencies, in terms of equipment failures. So they're treating things as emergencies when they really should be proactive.
Yeah. I think
they're getting there, they're getting there.
I think we need more transparent and timely reporting to this governing body on what exactly is happening there, but I think that's what you're moving towards. So
We'll have more information.
Kevin, before you respond, the people at home cannot hear you at all. All right, so if you could, I don't think that'll help for the Zoom. Can you just stand over there? Okay.
Would you like me to repeat?
Please, try to repeat your earlier.
Sure. The nitrate limit that is established by the state currently is based upon the lowest flows in the Peckman and the highest flows in the wastewater plant. That limit, obviously, the highest flows in the Peckman would be coming at the same time that we have higher flows through the plant. So the dynamic modeling is basically, it's a study on flows through the plant coinciding with the weather events. So higher flows in the plant come with higher flows in the Peckman, which means that the limit that's established is too strict of a limit, likely. We have a consultant who's performing analysis. We will be meeting with them in April. We'll have more information to provide to Mayor and Council after that meeting. And the hope is that after that analysis, we will either be able to remove the nitrate limit or they just have it much higher, which limits the capital need at the plant to treat that.
Great. And my last, question or comment is, so when we do the smoke testing and we find illegal connections, whose responsibility then is it to remediate that? Is that the homeowners or is that the municipality?
So if it's inlets that are tied into the sanitary, would be the municipalities. If it's something within the home, normally the way that works, it's the homeowner. So they're notified and they're giving, it depends on how we're going to handle it, but normally they get a notice that they need to disconnect their sump pump or sometimes they don't know that they have a cracked lateral or a cracked clean out. Their lawn is, smoking. So there are different things that could come about, but it's usually homeowners responsible for their property and then the township will be responsible for public property.
Obviously, when we get into the details, which isn't for tonight, I'll be concerned about residents who maybe can't afford to make those upgrades and making sure we direct them to appropriate programs so that they can, fix those deficiencies. Like I know there's programs that are through our Affordable Housing Trust Fund for, repairs and stuff. We have to think through all of those scenarios. And I guess my final question is, in the past, we were advised we should be lining all the manhole covers as one way of preventing infiltration during storms. So if we end up, is that one project that's typically done or?
So let's say we were doing the street or we're doing a project on the sanitary, you could put lids in, which makes, the water not go down or change the covers. If there's something that's flood prone area, you could do flood proof manholes. So those are, we instead of doing that all over the township, we could do it as we do our road programs.
Okay, so section by section, we're gonna tackle these issues. I guess that's my question.
Yes, and it's good practice anyway. If you're going to be doing the paving of the road, we know from previous experience that you should be videoing the lines before we pave the roads. And then there are areas in terms of the videos inspections that I spoke to Chuck and they know they're problem areas. So we'll start with those once after we do the smoke testing.
Well, I'm really excited for this report and to really begin implementation. And I thank you again for your really thoughtful analysis. And I think it's great for the public to be able to review this and the water system asset management plan. But now the key is to actually go forward and do the project. So thank you very much for your hard work.
I am going to close out with echoing the council folks' comments on the report. I think it was well done, and I do enjoy reading these things, believe it or not. I am heartened by option 2, largely because it does include our existing staff. And I think that's, a lot of them have been getting certifications and been doing the training and going to school, which is a testament of, moving a lot of DPW, correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck, but DPW laborers have moved kind of up in the ranks and are doing these and are investing a lot of time into this. And I think it's helpful. And I would hope that at some point we would be able to have enough trained staff that we could operate on our own again and use the talent that we have in house. But that would be my condition of approving that option would be that it does include our staff and it actually sets up so our staff could, provided we have enough, take the plant back over again in the future. I think that is important if we can get there. But right now, finding anybody to operate a plant, it's a challenge. And that's why if we have talent, we should really be cultivating it. And I thank Mr. Molinaro for his work on doing that, encouraging his staff always to get more education and training. And just as for public, Mr. Diaco is already planning the 100th anniversary party of the sewer plant. Yeah, here's my experience. So I hope that everybody is able to attend. All right, Mr. Diaco, do you have anything else? Yeah. Okay. Moving on to council reports. Deputy Mayor Mack.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will echo a very interesting new business that we did the ribbon cutting for in town. Palmetto Venues, excuse me, at 546 Bloomfield Avenue. It was very interesting because I was in that building prior to them renovating it, and they just basically cleared it out. And it's actually a lot, so much bigger than what I thought. They have 2 areas, one area 50 and one area that can hold 100, and right in the center of town. So I ask people if you want to have a party and bring your own caterer in, space that you can rent out from them, and obviously support a local business. And the other one, Subordinate Me Tierra, had their, I guess, official grand opening this weekend on Saturday. They have been in business for quite a bit, about a month, about a year already. But it was very nice to visit them. I have been in there eating their food several times already. And again, one of the many good restaurants in Verona, definitely frequent. We just touched on it about the meeting that Public Works had for the Caston, Whitney, and Windermere project. We've been doing that with residents for the last couple jobs that we did. So I want to thank Mr. Molinaro and Mr. Zander for running that meeting. There were quite a few questions for, I guess, us up here. We see a lot of these projects go through and others that see them. Some of these basic questions are good for residents to get up and ask because it familiarizes them with what's going to go on. So some of them I was like, oh yeah, that's a good question, but it has to be answered. So it was someone that was disabled was there. The question of the trees came up, and I thank Mr. Molinaro for going and reviewing the trees that were coming down and actually going to save a couple more. So that was always an issue, and we got plenty of emails from residents about the trees. So we're happy we can keep a couple more of them. So that is all I have for this evening.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilman Roman.
At the risk of being somewhat repetitive, but I'll be brief here. I'll just also congratulate Palmetto Venues. Great people there and a very creative reuse of retail space. I really like, retail. I'm glad when we have retail businesses, but also when there's spaces that can be used for alternative use. It's interesting to see what people think of to do with them. So I wish them the best of luck in Verona. And then also thank you to everyone who put together the groundbreaking ceremony for the playground this evening. It was a pleasure to attend and work that project on my thing. That's all I have for this evening.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman McGrath.
Thank you. I also attended the restaurant grand opening for Sabor, which is an amazing restaurant that I have frequented, and I really love the family and community support that they clearly have. It was really a fun celebration on a very rainy day, so I appreciated going. I was able to attend the Essex County Commissioners Women History event, which was held at the Glenridge Women's Club, which was also one of the honorees. The commissioners highlighted women business owners, women elected officials, and the Women's Club. It was an excellent event. It was always wonderful to support our commissioners. The Neighborhood Traffic and Safety Committee had a meeting. They talked further about their complete streets policy that they are drafting for the Lynn Drive project. We talked about Bloomfield Avenue safety and some advancements and conversations that have happened with the county. And they also talked at length about some safety improvements in the parking lot at Liberty Field. And that's actually my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Holland.
Thank you. I recently traveled to Washington, D.C. on business, and it's peak cherry blossom season down there. So I was really pleased to inform many of my fellow travelers that Essex County actually has more cherry blossoms than D.C. So I'm very much looking forward to enjoying the Essex County festivities that were mentioned earlier. I also attended the Essex County Commissioners Women's History Month celebration in Glen Ridge earlier this month. It was gorgeous and well attended, and I'm very grateful to be a part of a county that is so supportive of women elected officials and women in general. To that end, I also joined the League of Women Voters and had the benefit of speaking to women candidates for office. And I do think it is so important for women to really engage and race for these elected positions because representation really matters. I want to acknowledge the Maker's Day celebration at the Verona Public Library, and I'd really like to compliment Claudine and all of the library staff for the programming that they are providing to our youth. Maker's Day has grown more impressive every year, and as a parent of two girls that are very focused on STEM, I just really want to thank the library for offering these programs. I joined the Recreation Advisory Committee meeting on March 19th, where we discussed winter programming, the successes of the programs that were offered, as well as opportunities for growth. We discussed the spring programming, which registration has already opened, and it was very popular, and wait lists formed immediately, as has been the status since COVID. And so the Recreation Department has developed strategies for whittling down those wait lists, and we're already successfully doing so by the time of the Recreation Advisory Committee meeting. So while it is still frustrating that wait lists form so quickly, I do really want to compliment the Recreation Department staff for the time that they're taking and the progress that they're making with whittling down those wait lists. Pool registration starts on April 1st, and there was committee discussion about a survey and surveys that may be going out to the residents shortly. There's also been discussion about surveying for the winter programming to really get that direct resident engagement and feedback on the successes and opportunities presented by those programs. So that was the Recreation Advisory Committee meeting. I attended the event at Sabor, excuse me, and I really want to just talk about the fact that they have the most amazing food. So if you have not gone there to eat, you are missing out, and I really encourage you to do so. Finally, I want to acknowledge World Down Syndrome Day, which was last week, as well as Epilepsy Awareness Day, which is tomorrow, because I think it's really important to understand that for us to be inclusive and accessible to our residents, we need to recognize disabilities that are not always seen to the eye. So, having known people in my life that have suffered from those disorders, I really think it's important to continue to raise awareness and to be truly inclusive. So thank you so much. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilwoman. This time I'm going to open public comment on any item. Madam Clerk, would you please read the public participation?
From the public wishing to speak on any matter, please raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button on your monitor. If you're dialing on my phone, please approach the lectern. Once recognized, please state only your name and township of residence for the record. You're not required to provide your street address. However, if you do, please note that these meetings will be posted on the township's YouTube channel. And addresses will not be redacted for any purpose. You'll have 4 minutes to address the council. We no cross dialogue during this public portion, and after everyone wishing to speak has been heard, the council may address your comments and or questions.
Thank you, Ms. Clerk. Any public participation at this time? Being none, I will close public comments and we will move on to adoption, hearing amendment ordinances. The first ordinance on the agenda on second reading is ordinance number 2024-14. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title of this ordinance to the record?
In order to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and establish a cap bank pursuant to NJSA 40A 4-5.14.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion is made by Councilman Grant. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second is made by Councilman Verona. And now it's time for public hearing on ordinance number 2024-14. The same public comment statement that was just read applies. But please note that public comment is only on the ordinance. So you got public comment. I will close public comment at this time. Is there any council discussion? For the public edification, this is an ordinance that we have to pass every year as a budget process. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman, Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Kilgore,
Yes.
Mayor ordinance 14 passes 5-0. Moving public.
At this time, I'm going to relinquish the chair to the deputy mayor as I'm recusing myself on ordinance for 2024-13. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next up is ordinance number 2024-15. Madam Clerk, can you please read the title?
Full ordinance appropriating $42,225 from the general capital reserve for future improvements for the rescue squad special operations vehicle, Township of Verona, in the county of Essex, New Jersey.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I will move this ordinance. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilman Rowe. At this time, we will open up public comment on this ordinance. Anybody that has a comment to this ordinance only can approach a lectern, or on Zoom, you can raise your hand. And Township you live in, please.
That's a hard one. I did go to Verona High School, so it gets a little wishy-washy sometimes. Fred Tempesta, 9 Ellenwood, Verona. Honestly, I'm worth more dead than alive most days, so it's fine. Don't worry. Just come for me, Jen. It's okay. Anyway, in all seriousness, I appreciate the council's support thus far. I sent you guys all an email. I know you hear me talk time and time again, but I've always believed reading is believing. And sending just a list of the volunteer specialists within the last couple of years that have crumbled for varieties of different reasons. And the reason we're asking for the money is because we're the exact opposite. It's kind of a unicorn as much volunteer organizations go. We have more and more and more manpower. So the more manpower we have, the more other extraneous things we can be a part of. And that just attracts more members. It's like a self-propelling machine. The more we do, the more we attract, the more we do, the more we attract. And it's really just a good service for the town to have overall. Kind of a side note, I was going to get up during public comment. I didn't. For April's Autism Awareness Month, what Councilwoman Holland said to me resonated with just as Down syndrome and epilepsy. You really can't tell what autism is, which is why we actually sold shirts to the squad members. I'm actually wearing it tonight as well. My daughter's 5 and nonverbal and autistic. So, well, it's not part of the ordinance, so, spare me the little bit of a segue. But thank you for the entire support of the entire council. I appreciate it.
No one else and no one on Zoom, I will close public participation in this ordinance and ask for any council comments.
So that I will,
Roman?
continue to support this ordinance. I've had discussions with members of the squad, and seen some of the equipment that is associated with this vehicle. Had discussions of its value and use to the community. This is something that we've been looking to complete this project for quite a while. The dollar amount on the project has gone down over time, which is a rarity in government. So I'm happy to continue to support this, and I appreciate the squad's excellent work for our community and their ongoing growth and improvement of their running. Thank you.
Thank you. No. Anyone else? Yeah, we'll just say, for myself, there's been comments of the fact that the price put into this has gone down a little is because the rescue squad has taken money out of their funds to purchase some of the things that were needed for this vehicle. I too will be supporting this. I see actually no downside to having this vehicle especially for the amount of money that this ordinance is for. So I look forward to hopefully having this vehicle up and running for the squad. Sure. With that, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor, ordinance 2024-15 passes 4-0, will be published.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and I will turn the meeting back over to the mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We do not have any proposed ordinances on the agenda this evening. And at this point, we move on to the consent agenda, which includes no minutes, only one resolution that is not a traditional executive session resolution. I do just want to give a little brief background on this. During our interview process of our township manager, Mr. Diarca, he shared that other towns that he had been the manager of had secured artillery pieces as a basically an outdoor museum display and as a memorial and a way to honor our armed forces. We were very intrigued by this. Mr. Diarco is keeping with his promise and working with us and with the help of Peter Lupo, who was one of our contractors as well, our wireless services and communications consulting, and they're working on this. So the resolution is required. A letter of support from the mayor was also required that has been prepared. Thank you, Madam Clerk, putting that to paper. And I look forward to actually having some kind of display to add to our beautiful civic center and all the other displays there. That's the only thing that really needs explanation on the resolution. Would somebody please move the agenda? So the motion is made by Councilman Roman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
The second is made by Deputy Mayor. This time I'll open for public comment on the consent agenda only. The same public comment statement applies. I'm sorry, I didn't read the license and permit. It's for limousine license renewal from Mohegan Coach. Seeing no public comment, I will close public comment. Is there any council discussion? Councilman McGrath.
Yes, thank you. So on this resolution on the military hardware, we did, as we've had many conversations when we were hiring Mr. Diarco, and we were talking about getting a cannon, and I was envisioning like some sort of Civil War replica. And as I was driving around this weekend, I drove in another community and I saw a large piece of hardware. And so I do, while I'm absolutely in support of us exploring down this road, I do think we have to be thoughtful about what is the piece, what is the size of the piece, where is it going. And if we are putting it in the town center, I think there's additional concerns given the school and the large number of students there. And again, is it a piece of equipment that may inadvertently, cause injury or harm if kids are roughhousing near it? Where is it going to be located? And then when we're talking about town center in particular, we also have some other considerations in terms of the strategic planning of that town, of our green, because we do have a very large tree that is really at the end of its lifespan. And at some point, we need to have a conversation with the public on how our holiday celebrations are going to look a little different in the future. So I will support, exploring this, but I do have some, concerns on where are we going to put this? What is it going to look like? And also I think we should make sure that we do this in the spirit of getting a lot of resident feedback. Because residents, I think, are going to want to have a say on what our public spaces look like. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I just go ahead, Mr. Yarko. I think I was going to respond and
Acquiring the piece was, yes, thank you, Mayor. It was on the list of many projects that you have for me to get moving here. The application is submitted and there's details for the application. There's a few items taking into consideration. I wasn't sure exactly where on the green to refer to it as the green is going to be placed. There are certain things that I checked off that would not be acceptable for you. In the arena of things that could come, I knew you wanted an artillery piece. It would not be a tank. It will not be a helicopter, which those things are available, but probably no.
we get a helicopter and put it somewhere else.
That's cool.
Cool, yes.
Yeah. So there is a number of artillery pieces from a basic 155 howitzer to the long gun howitzers, the big ones, which would not be appropriate for here. The barrel would be as long as this building. You do have the final yes or no once you're authorized. That's up to the council. And I strongly suggest it'll probably take better part of a year to finally get approved and get it acquired. Then you'll have a review. So the council should be discussing where exactly there are specific guidelines that the military advises you on how it's how the pad is made, how the security, the signage recognizing the military, and where the piece would be placed. I can tell you that the last one I did was on school grounds, adjacent to Paramus Memorial School, when the school was named Memorial School, and the Veterans Memorial Walk and Memorial is right there on the school grounds, and there was no issues there with the artillery piece, other than what direction it was pointing. So that was also a decision of the governing body.
Well, first of all, we would love maybe to see a picture of that. And I think this is also in your conversations with the superintendent, just opening up that this is a possibility as well, just so they are fully aware.
That'll be here.
Yeah, okay.
Councilman Holland.
Yeah, I'm just intrigued. So you've clearly, so this process is already moving forward and you've clearly made some strategic decisions about what would work, what wouldn't work. What I haven't seen is where the expectation is that this would be located. Councilwoman McGrath makes a very valid point about the large, essentially Christmas tree that we have in the town square. Is it anticipated that it's behind that? And if we then were to remove that Christmas tree because of, it becoming a hazard tree, is this anticipated to replace that? Like where were you thinking of in the Civic Center? Because I'm not sure if that had been determined or not.
It hadn't been determined.
Okay.
My piece of this project is that there was a desire to have one. Obviously, I was thinking you're green here because you do have your memorial here, you do have your services here, so was going to be here, but that decision is the governing body's. The exact placement is the governing body's, and literally, I would not make any decision about any tree in the township. The tree is failing. I think your shade tree commission will tell you that tree is failing.
Okay.
And it obscures your green and the vision of what your green is. But that's not a decision I can make either. That's a decision of the governing body on the tree, the placement, and where exactly how you want it positioned. I'd assume it be named across, well, don't have it.
Certainly not at the school
library or the town.
No, so I guess what I would just add, I think this is great and moving forward. I too kind of envisioned more of I guess older, maybe Civil War vintage, like cannons, but maybe that's just because my father took us to a lot of Civil War battlefields and we always took pictures like sitting on the cannon. When I was growing up, and that became kind of like a joke. So I make my children sit on cannons whenever we go to like historic places.
They won't be able to.
I know. Well, it sounds like it won't. So like I don't know. It wasn't meeting my vision. However, I would just ask that when this does move forward, or as this moves forward, that you bring to the council visuals about what this would look like, and that we have a better understanding of how it'll fit in, because I do think that there's value there. Thank you.
I think it's important for the council to walk the green and decide where to go. And I did, I'm not sure how much luck I would have if they're still available, a World War One piece, because your monument is a World War One token. And next most likely is the World War II 155 howitzers. The replica that I didn't have installed is on the green in Caldwell. The Decatur cannon that was missing for decades. I made that comment way back when I was in Caldwell at one point in my career, very young, and had a replica made because they could never find it again. So the council has a lot of decisions to make.
Councilman Roman.
Just in general, thank you for your work on this project. I know this is something we're very interested in, and we'll figure out exactly where it goes and what it looks like and so on. But I just appreciate you working on this project.
I think those are the small parts of the project. The biggest thing is getting something and getting it here because they're heavy. And I trust Mr. Diarco's judgment on this as well, and think it would be a extraordinarily good addition to our civic center, especially when we have well-attended Memorial and Veterans Day observance. All right. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilwoman Holland,
Yes.
Councilwoman McGrath,
Yes.
Councilman Roman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor McAvoy,
Yes.
Mayor Tamboro. Your resolutions K1 and K2 would be number 2024-59 and 60.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We do not have any addendum tonight. We're moving on to new unfinished business. The first item on the agenda is discussion of zoning fee ordinance. Mr. Diarco. Mr. Russell.
Very comfortable.
We discussed at a prior mayor and council meeting the notion of adopting zoning permit fees. Our construction office, construction official, zoning official, pulled a survey of surrounding towns, and Verona is, I think we may be the only town that does not have any zoning fee at all. So there was a survey of a number of neighboring towns with the zoning fees by category based on what they charge their applicants. There was a recommendation that the residential properties are generally that they would generally see a $50 zoning fee, aside from new structures, which would be a $75 zoning fee application. For non-residential properties, it would be $75 across the board, except for new structures, which would be a $100 zoning application fee. This would be zoning fees that would cover the work and effort put in by the zoning office for reviewing applications associated with fences, signs, structures, detached structures, conditional uses, subdivisions, and other zoning applications that aren't specifically listed. There was a recommendation. It was put into the form of an ordinance for consideration and discussion tonight.
Mr. Sullivan. I'm going to start on this one today. I appreciate the staff looking at Midtown. When you did your parable, are these numbers that you picked because they're very even numbers? Is this what other towns are charging? Or is this lower or higher? Where does this fall in?
So what the construction and zoning official did was they pulled a number of contiguous towns, neighboring towns, and towns of very similar populations nearby. That survey included Caldwell, Cedar Grove, East Hanover, Essex Fells, Livingston, Montclair, North Caldwell, Roseland, West Caldwell, and West Orange. They looked at average zoning fee applications. And they also looked at the 3 towns that are most comparable in population in Cedar Grove, East Hanover, and West Caldwell. And they tried to balance what the average fees were, along with trying to make sure that the recommended fees were simple enough to follow and easy enough to digest, both from the public and then also for the office to actually administer as well.
I appreciate that. It would be helpful to see some of that information if you can provide that. Forgive me if you have. My comment on fees is always such that we have to decide what we want to charge reasons for and what they're already paying for in taxes, right? So we've been running a zoning department on tax dollars. Though zoning is effectively a pay per use type environment, right? You're not going to get charged if you do something. So I don't have an objection to a small fee. I'm not sure if going kind of right to the average is maybe the right way when we're introducing a fee. My concern is I am not prepared to vote on this probably in the next few months. The reason being is that our zoning department has suffered significant turnover in the past year, for like 4 different zoning officers. There are still concerns among residents that I'm hearing relatively frequently just about that transition and about different things. So I'm not sure I'm prepared at this point to add another cog into that system as far as a fee paying. So my comfortability would be to, because we've waited certainly this long, is to wait until our new zoning officer, is doing a very good job, is in the position for a while longer, that the council and the administration can sort out more of the systematic issues. And then we can propose this once we have a consistent zoning officer, because I think it adds a bit of an insult to injury when we're charging people when we have had some customer service issues in the past, and that is not good government. So I don't have an opposition. These numbers I still need to analyze a bit more. My suggestion would be start lower, but I would much prefer to wait on this the fall when we can really see and make sure that we have a consistent zoning department. And I think that would be a good show of our respect for resident concerns. Comments? Councilman Roman? Deputy Mayor.
If we pass this, could we put a date like effective as of September 1, October 1? We can write that into an ordinance. I've been, for years, I've been shocked that we don't have these already in. Because I mean, going back, I can go 15 years, you would always have it. I mean, someone puts an application in for a sign or a fence. It's specific to their property, and the rest of the town is paying for the time of our employee to process that paperwork and issue that permit and that sign permit or fence permit. So I am 100% for this. I think it's a minimal amount, but it's enough to cover the time that's put into assessing it. And you go around town, and I'll use fences. I say it all the time. You drive around town, there's a ton of fences up that just aren't according to our zoning ordinance. Fences that are within 10 foot of the front of a yard. I go by one every morning, and it kind of blocks the line of sight. So I think this is why we have these in place. It's a minimal amount of money, but I think it's definitely something that I would definitely.
Councilman Roman?
Just out of curiosity, I mean, the majority of these changes would require a building permit, or at least a lot of them. From an administrative standpoint, why charge a zoning fee rather than just increasing the construction code fee and generating the same amount of revenue.
Well, a lot of the construction code fees are established by the UCC. The second reason why it wouldn't make sense to do that is that a lot of these fees are more a review of the zoning compliance rather than the review of the construction application or construction materials. So it's to make sure that the location, the sign, the size of the sign, the location of the materials of the fence are compliant with the zoning ordinances rather than construction permit application, which has a different purpose.
Right, but I mean, money is fungible. I mean, as long as revenue coming into the township and it's paying, that's my only concern is, okay, do we add another fee on, like, at what point in time, how many lines on the receipt are we going to have here with miscellaneous fees? There is pushback against, fees, I'm not going to call this a junk fee, but people are calling, junk fees that get added on to almost everything you do in life nowadays, to the point where the president's pushing back. Kind of curious as to why we would sort of go in the opposite direction of just naming an entirely different fee and why go that way?
Sure.
I'll jump in too. On the issue of changing zoning officers, our current zoning officer is extremely experienced. That's why I hired her and stole her from another town. She's very confident, she's very good. And we recently put a secretary to go into training. As far as the why not add it to the construction fees, the DCA construction fees are pretty established in guidelines, and that the revenue taken on the construction fees you have to spend on it. It's adding the zoning fees to that could create a problem, funding fees to the state of New Jersey. I've gone through this before. Zoning is completely separate. It's a separate staff that has to review them. You're spending staff time on a specific element from the operation, which is the zoning ordinances, which the construction office doesn't have. So,
Thank you, Mr. Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Yeah, Councilman Brown.
Yes, I'm in full support of putting in these fees. I'm actually shocked that we don't have them in place, and I thought your analysis was excellent. Having gone through this process in the recent past, $50 is a small amount of money to pay considering the size of the projects that people are doing. I don't and considering also the complexity of our zoning ordinances, which we have made even more complex and have very high standards in our town. So we have a very robust code, but consequently, and that residency to follow. So these are lengthy review processes because of our how we're governing this. So I don't think we need to wait, and I think these are reasonable, and I think they should be implemented. I do think that these, especially on things like this, where people are electing to do projects, mainly, and that will add to the value of their homes. I think that these are opportunities to help defray costs, which then help to moderate and keep tax increases low. So I think there's an advantage to putting these fees in and collecting them, and that will help us when we're looking at the tax increase for 2025. So I thank you for your robust analysis, and I look forward to voting on this, hopefully in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. One last thought on this, and I'm going to add to a fee. The site plan, I'm looking at for non-residential site plans over 5 acres is the same as a site plan under 5 acre. I can guarantee you our zoning official will spend more time on a 5 acre. So maybe that one should be like $100 fee instead of same as 75. But just a thought, think of it before we end up later. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Anything else for new business?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have a lot of things. All right, the liquor license ordinance, who wants this one?
I'm sorry, last year for fees, and the licensing period ends on June 30th. If I may, by law, the state allows $2,500 maximum but the increase can only be $500 or 20% of the current license amount, whichever is less.
Yeah.
Which brings the consumption licenses to 2,500 and the retail distribution, the liquor stores to like 1866, if the increases of.
And is this an annual fee?
It's an annual fee, and then we have to pay a small fee to this ABC.
Sure. It's money moving from one government to another.
Can you just repeat that? Maximum of 20%, or what was the other one? Or no more than $500?
It's 20% of the current license amount, or $500, whichever is less. So with the consumption licenses, 2,500 is the max, so you just hit 2,500 because neither apply.
Thank you.
Yes, it's the state cap that you can go to.
Any strenuous objections on this? No.
Given the timeliness, I'm
Yep, let's put on the agenda for next meeting, please.
Thank you.
Okay. This time, I'm open for public comment on any item. Same public comment statement applies. Anybody in the room would like to comment, please come up with a lectern. You get home. Seeing no public comments, I'm going to close public comment. We will be going to executive session, no official action. Mr. Diaco, Mr. Goya. Do we have anything for you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Sir, Diaco mentioned one item. Okay. All right, we have already passed a resolution to go into executive session, so we will do that at this time. We will see you on April 8th.